Imagine this. You wake up in the middle of a vast desert, alone. The sky is a deep, unnatural shade of violet. There are no stars, just a heavy silence pressing down on you like a forgotten truth. You look around, but there's nothing. No footprints, no landmarks, no signs that anyone has ever been here before. Yet something inside you knows you were meant to be here. This place was waiting for you, and then, beneath your feet, the sand begins to tremble. Not from an earthquake or wind, but from rhythm, a pulse. It rises through your body like a heartbeat, not your own. You feel it first in your feet, then your legs, then all the way up to your throat, where it lodges like a cry you never learned how to make. You try to speak, but no sound comes out. You try to move, but the ground holds you firm. You realize with a slow, creeping dread that you're not standing on sand at all. You're standing on yourself. 7 glowing centers hum beneath your skin, each one vibrating at a different frequency. They are ancient, primal, and yet strangely familiar, as if they have always been there, buried under years of distraction, denial, and noise. You feel their energy rise one by one, as though awakening from a long slumber. But instead of relief, you feel exposed, vulnerable, as if these forces know you better than you've ever known yourself. This is not madness. This is not metaphor. This is the reality we all ignore. You see, most people live their lives without ever realizing that they are walking temples of energy, complex, dynamic systems pulsing with invisible power. We talk about emotions, thoughts, desires, and fears, but rarely do we ask, where do they come from? Why do some feelings stick to us like tar while others slip away like water off stone? Why does love sometimes feel like fire, and other times, like a blade? We believe ourselves to be rational beings guided by logic and reason. But what if that belief is the greatest illusion of all? What if every decision you've ever made, every relationship you've ever formed, every moment of joy or despair was subtly influenced by forces you cannot see, barely understand, and have never been taught to control? These forces are not random. They are not chaos. They are structure, pattern, ancient architecture built into the very fabric of human existence. And they are called chakras. But forget everything you think you know about them. Forget the New Age. Books filled with pastel diagrams and vague affirmations. Forget the yoga instructors who speak of them like mystical ornaments rather than living systems. The chakras are not abstract concepts or spiritual fantasies. They are real, tangible, scientific. And they hold the key to understanding why so many of us feel lost, disconnected, and powerless, even when we seem to have it all. Consider this paradox. Modern science tells us that the human body is made of atoms, cells, DNA, matter governed by physical laws. But what it doesn't tell us is why 2 people with identical genetics can lead entirely different lives. Why one person thrives while another withers. Why some are drawn to light while others orbit darkness. Why trauma leaves invisible scars that outlive flesh. Why love can heal wounds medicine cannot touch. Is it possible that behind the veil of biology lies another system, one that regulates not just our physical health but our psychological destiny? The chakras may be the answer. Each center corresponds to a specific aspect of human experience: survival, sexuality, power, love, expression, intuition, and connection to something greater than the self. But they are not passive. They are active, reactive. They absorb, store, and transmit information. Emotional, energetic, even ancestral. They form the bridge between body and mind, between matter and meaning. So why do we ignore them? Why, in an age of unprecedented knowledge, do we still struggle with anxiety, depression, addiction, and existential emptiness? Why do we medicate symptoms while ignoring the deeper currents that shape them? Why do we seek answers outside ourselves when the blueprint for transformation may already exist within? Because we have forgotten how to listen. We have silenced the inner voice that once knew how to balance fear and courage, desire and restraint, will and surrender. We have become experts at masking pain with distractions, at numbing discomfort with consumption, at pretending everything is fine until we collapse under the weight of unspoken truths. And now, standing in the silent desert of your own being, you begin to sense it, the dissonance, the misalignment, the feeling that something vital has been severed, and you don't even remember when. But here's the question that haunts you. If you could reconnect with these hidden centers, if you could awaken the dormant energies within you, would you still recognize yourself? Would the person who emerges be stronger, freer, more alive? Or would you finally see the parts of yourself you've spent a lifetime avoiding? There is no turning back now, because the journey has already begun. And the next step requires you to confront the root of the problem, not just in the world around you, but in the very foundation of your psyche. Are you ready to face it? Let the sands shift. Let the first chakra stir. Let the truth begin to rise. The silence in the desert is not empty. It's full of memory. Every grain beneath your feet carries the weight of unspoken fears, unresolved griefs, and inherited wounds that have never been acknowledged. This is not just metaphor, it is biology. It is psychology. It is history encoded into the very structure of your being. You stand alone, yet you are not alone. You are a living archive of your ancestors. Traumas, your culture's conditioning, your own forgotten choices. And at the core of this labyrinth lies the first chakra, the root, survival, foundation, identity. It is the place where the body meets the earth and where the self first learns to trust or fear the world. But what happens when that foundation cracks? What happens when the root becomes poisoned, not by external forces but by internal dissonance? When the energy meant to ground you instead traps you in cycles of fear, scarcity, and control. This is the hidden problem. It does not announce itself with fanfare. It doesn't wear a mask or speak in riddles. It lives in the background noise, the quiet anxiety before a meeting, the compulsive scroll through social media, the way you swallow your voice to avoid conflict, the hunger that has nothing to do with food. It is the silent war between who you are and who you've been taught to be. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the unconscious part of the psyche that holds everything we reject about ourselves. He believed that until we confront these buried fragments, we remain incomplete, haunted by impulses we cannot name and desires we dare not acknowledge. According to Jung, the chakras, if they were known to him, might represent the energetic scaffolding upon which this inner architecture is built. Each center corresponds to a stage of psychological development, a battleground where identity is forged and fractured. The second chakra, for instance, governs sexuality and creativity, but also shame. How many people live their entire lives afraid to express desire, to create freely, to claim pleasure as a right rather than a sin? These are not mere personal quirks. They are wounds etched into the nervous system, passed down like heirlooms from generation to generation. Friedrich Nietzsche understood this too, though he spoke of it differently. In his eyes, society was a machine designed to suppress the will, to power, not domination over others, but mastery over oneself. To live fully, one must embrace chaos, passion, and strength. But modern life demands conformity. It teaches us to fear our instincts, to sanitize our emotions, to trade wildness for stability. As a result, we become fragmented, disconnected from the raw, pulsing force that once made us whole. Arthur Schopenhauer saw even deeper. He argued that human existence is driven by blind will, an insatiable force that seeks fulfillment but never finds it. Sound familiar? That restless dissatisfaction, that sense that something is always missing? That is the third chakra at war with itself. The solar plexus, seat of personal power, is where confidence is born or crushed. When misaligned, it manifests as either dominance or submission, arrogance or insecurity. You see it in leaders who rule through fear, and in followers who surrender their agency without question. And then there is Aldous Huxley, who warned us that the greatest tyranny would not come with chains, but with distraction. His brave new world was not ruled by fear, but by pleasure, a seductive illusion of freedom masking total control. Today, we drown in dopamine hits, notifications, likes, endless entertainment. We pacify the heart chakra with consumerism, mistaking acquisition for love, validation for connection. We build walls around the fourth center, fearing intimacy more than loneliness, because vulnerability feels like death. Jean-Paul Sartre said, "Hell is other people." But perhaps hell is not the other. It is the void within. The fifth chakra, the throat center, governs communication, truth, and self-expression. When blocked, we lose the ability to speak our needs, to say no, to ask for help. Instead, we perform. We wear masks. We become echoes of expectations, whispering lies so often, we forget how to tell the truth. Even Viktor Frankl, who survived the horrors of Auschwitz, recognized the existential crisis embedded in the sixth chakra, the third eye. He wrote that meaning is not given, but chosen. Yet today, many wander without purpose, numbed by nihilism, paralyzed by the belief that nothing matters. If the third eye is closed, we see only fog, no vision, no clarity, only confusion. And finally, the crown chakra, the seventh center, is where all paths converge. It is not religion. It is not dogma. It is awareness beyond the self, a knowing that we are part of something greater, whether we call it God, universe, consciousness, or mystery. But in a world obsessed with materialism, this chakra is the most neglected. We have lost the sacred. And in doing so, we have lost the thread that connects us to meaning, to awe, to transcendence. So now you begin to see the chakras are not mystical relics. They are mirrors. They reflect the deepest truths of who we are and who we have become. And the real question is not whether they exist. It is whether we are willing to look into them. Because what stares back may terrify you. It may unravel everything. You thought you knew, but if you dare to face it, if you dare to awaken each center, not as an abstraction but as a living force, you may discover something radical. You may remember who you truly are. Not the roles you play, not the trauma you carry, not the stories you repeat, but the raw, radiant energy that pulses beneath it all. Are you ready to see what happens next? Then step forward into the storm of consequence, where the unseen begins to reveal itself. You thought you were in control, that the choices you made, what you ate, who you loved, what career you pursued, were the result of conscious deliberation. That your emotions, though sometimes unruly, were ultimately yours to manage. That your thoughts, fleeting as they are, belonged solely to you. But what if none of it was truly your own? What if every decision, every feeling, every impulse was subtly shaped by invisible forces? Forces that do not announce themselves, but instead whisper from the shadows of your nervous system. What if the reason you struggle with relationships is not because of bad luck, but because your second chakra has been closed since childhood trauma taught you to fear intimacy? What if your inability to say no, to set boundaries, stems from a collapsed throat chakra that learned early on that silence was safer than speech? These are not abstract possibilities. They are biological realities. Because the chakras do not merely exist within you, they shape the architecture of your mind, your body, and your destiny. And when they are blocked, misaligned, or overactive, they create unseen consequences that ripple outward, distorting perception, warping behavior, and dictating the trajectory of your life in ways you never even knew to question. Let's begin with the most insidious of these distortions: cognitive bias. Modern neuroscience tells us that the human brain is not a neutral processor of information. It is a survival machine, one that evolved to detect threats, avoid pain, and seek pleasure at all costs. But buried beneath this primal wiring lies an energetic blueprint that determines how we interpret reality. The chakras act as filters through which experience is processed. A wounded root chakra floods the nervous system with fear, making you perceive danger where there is none. A damaged heart chakra distorts your view of love, convincing you that affection must be earned rather than given freely. And yet, you believe yourself to be rational. You believe that your worldview is based on logic, evidence, and personal experience. But what if your very perception of reality is being filtered through emotional wounds, encoded in your energy centers? What if your deepest fears and desires are not just psychological states, but neurological programs running silently in the background, shaping your beliefs, coloring your memories, and steering your decisions without your awareness? This is the true power of the chakras. They don't just influence how you feel, they determine how you see. And when they are out of balance, they create a kind of internal illusion, a false reality that feels entirely real because it is the only one you have ever known. Consider the modern epidemic of anxiety. Millions suffer from panic attacks, racing thoughts, insomnia. Yet rarely do we ask why the body is reacting so violently to seemingly normal situations. We treat symptoms with medication, therapy, breathing exercises, but rarely do we trace the disturbance back to its source. Often it begins in the first chakra, the root. When this center is compromised, the body lives in a constant state of hypervigilance, mistaking everyday stressors for existential threats. You may intellectually understand that you are safe, but your body does not believe it, because your root chakra remembers abandonment, poverty, instability, even if your conscious mind has long forgotten. Or take the crisis of disconnection. So many people today report feeling lonely despite being surrounded by others. Social media connects us more than ever, yet genuine intimacy feels increasingly elusive. This is not coincidence. This is the collapse of the fourth chakra, the heart. When this center is blocked, we lose the ability to give and receive love without conditions. We become transactional in our relationships, treating affection as currency rather than connection. We crave closeness but sabotage it when it arrives, because vulnerability threatens the protective walls we've built around ourselves. And then there is the greatest illusion of all, the belief that we are powerless. We tell ourselves that we are victims of circumstance, genetics, upbringing, society. We point to external forces as the reason we cannot change, cannot heal, cannot break free. But what if the real prison is not outside of us, but within? Every time you suppress anger, you weaken the third chakra. Every time you deny your voice, you silence the fifth. Every time you reject intuition, you blind the sixth. And every time you refuse to see the sacredness within yourself, you sever the seventh. The consequences are not abstract. They manifest in depression, addiction, chronic illness, toxic relationships, spiritual emptiness. They show up in the quiet, despair of someone who has everything the world says should make them happy, and still feels hollow inside. This is the unseen war, a battle not against enemies, but against the silent erosion of self. Against the slow poisoning of the energy centers that once allowed us to live fully, fiercely, and unapologetically. Against the systems, cultural, familial, societal, that taught us to fear our own power, to distrust our instincts, to bury our truth beneath layers of conditioning. And yet, despite all of this, something in you knows. You feel it in moments of inexplicable longing for something deeper, something truer, something beyond the surface of your daily life. You sense it in dreams that linger too long, in songs that make you ache without knowing why, in conversations that awaken something ancient and unnamed within you. It is the echo of alignment, the whisper of a self that once knew how to flow, how to trust, how to be. But now, standing here in the shifting sands of your inner landscape, you realize you can no longer ignore what you have seen. You can no longer pretend that imbalance is normal. You can no longer accept suffering as the price of being human, because now you know the truth. The problem is not outside of you, it is within. And if it was created by trauma, by conditioning, by choice, then it can also be undone. Not through force, not through denial, but through awakening, through reclaiming what was lost, through remembering how to feel, how to breathe, how to open. Are you ready? Because the rebellion begins now, and it starts with a single step into the unknown. You were never meant to live like this, trapped in cycles of fear, longing, and exhaustion, chasing validation while numbing pain, seeking love while building walls, searching for meaning in places it was never meant to be found. You thought freedom was a destination, something you'd reach once the right job, the right relationship, or the right amount of money finally arrived. But now you see, freedom is not external. It is internal. It lives in your energy, in your breath, in the quiet spaces between your thoughts. And it begins with rebellion. Not the kind that burns cities or overthrows governments, but the kind that dismantles the invisible prison inside you. The kind that refuses to accept suffering as fate. The kind that dares to ask, what if everything I've been taught about myself is a lie? This is not an easy path. It does not come with shortcuts, 5-step programs, or miracle cures. It demands something far more difficult than discipline. It requires honesty. Brutal, unflinching honesty. Because breaking free means confronting the parts of yourself you have spent a lifetime avoiding. It means staring into the void of your own conditioning and asking, where did I learn to fear intimacy? Why do I sabotage success? What am I hiding from myself? But here's the truth. You are not broken. You are simply misaligned. The chakras were never meant to be locked away, suppressed, or ignored. They were designed to flow, to move, to pulse, to awaken. When they are blocked, we suffer. When they are open, we thrive. And the moment you begin to realign them, not just intellectually but energetically, you begin to reclaim the power that was always yours. So how do you start? By doing the exact opposite of what society has trained you to do. Instead of suppressing emotions, you feel them fully, without judgment, without escape. You let grief rise without trying to fix it. You allow anger to speak without silencing it. You welcome joy without waiting for it to end. You stop running from discomfort and instead sit with it, learning its language, understanding its message. Because every emotion is energy in motion, and when you suppress it, it stagnates. It becomes disease. It becomes anxiety. It becomes depression. It becomes addiction. But when you allow it to move, it transforms. That is the first act of rebellion. Then comes awareness. You must learn to listen to your body, to your intuition, to the subtle signals that have been speaking to you all along. Your second chakra knows when you are betraying your desires. Your third chakra warns you when you are giving away your power. Your heart chakra aches when you close yourself off from love. Your throat chakra tightens when you are about to speak a lie. Your third eye flickers when you are ignoring a deeper knowing. And your crown chakra hums when you remember that you are part of something greater. These are not coincidences. They are messages, and if you want to break free, you must learn to read them. One by one, you begin to awaken each center, not through force, but through presence, through breath, through movement, through sound, through conscious intention. You do not need to believe in the chakras to feel their effects. All you need is the willingness to pay attention. Consider the ancient yogis who mapped these centers thousands of years ago. They did not rely on technology or science. They relied on direct experience. They meditated, observed, listened. They discovered that energy follows attention, that consciousness shapes reality, that healing is not about fixing, but about remembering, and so must you. This rebellion is not loud. It does not demand applause. It is quiet, relentless, deeply personal. It happens in the moments no one sees, in the breath you take before responding instead of reacting, in the pause before you say yes when you mean no, in the choice to stay present even when distraction calls. It is the decision to no longer outsource your power, to stop waiting for someone else to save you, to stop believing that happiness lies somewhere outside of yourself, to stop chasing fulfillment in things that were never meant to fill you. Because the only thing missing is you, the real you. the unfiltered, unapologetic, fully awake version of yourself that has been buried beneath years of trauma, expectation, and conditioning. And the way back is not forward, it is inward. Through the chakras, each one a doorway, each one a lesson, each one a chance to reclaim a piece of yourself that you thought was lost forever. You begin with the root. You ground yourself, not in certainty, but in trust, in the knowledge that you are safe, even when the world feels unstable. You reconnect with your body, your breath, your heartbeat. You eat with awareness, you move with purpose, you sleep with reverence. You create boundaries, not out of fear, but out of self-respect. Then you move to the sacral. You allow pleasure to exist without guilt. You embrace creativity without apology. You honor desire without shame. You stop punishing yourself for wanting. You stop fearing your own needs. You become fluid again, like water, adapting, flowing, alive. Next, the solar plexus. You reclaim your will. You stop shrinking. You stop apologizing for taking up space. You stop waiting for permission to lead, to speak, to shine. You stop defining yourself by others' expectations and begin defining yourself by your own truth. Then the heart. You open, not recklessly, not foolishly, but deeply. You give love freely, knowing it does not diminish you. You receive love without conditions, knowing you are worthy regardless. You forgive, not because others deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Then the throat. You speak. You name your truth. You say no without guilt. You say yes without hesitation. You write, sing, create, express, not for approval, but for release. You stop editing yourself into silence. Then the third eye. You trust your intuition. You stop outsourcing your wisdom. You stop doubting your inner voice. You begin to see beyond appearances, beyond illusions, beyond the noise. You understand that clarity is not given, it is cultivated. And finally, the crown. You remember. You remember that you are not alone, that you are part of something vast, something infinite. You stop searching for meaning and begin embodying it. You stop fearing death because you know that consciousness does not end. You stop resisting mystery because you have learned to live within it. This is the rebellion, not against the world, but against the illusion that you are powerless within it. And now, as you stand at the threshold of something new, you realize you are not the same person who began this journey. You have shed layers. You have faced shadows. You have reclaimed lost pieces of yourself. You have moved through fear, through doubt, through resistance, and emerged stronger. But there is still one final truth to uncover, one last revelation that will change everything. Are you ready? Then step forward into the ultimate realization, into the deepest awakening, into the final truth of who you truly are. You have come so far, through the silence of the desert, through the echoes of your own conditioning, through the rebellion that rewrote the language of your soul. You have faced fear, confronted shame, reclaimed power, opened your heart, spoken your truth, trusted your vision, and touched the infinite. And now, standing at the edge of everything you once believed to be real, you are no longer who you were. But what if none of it, none of the pain, the struggle, the seeking was ever meant to lead you somewhere else? What if it was always leading you back to the center? Not a place, not a destination, but a knowing, a vibration so deep it cannot be spoken, only felt. The ultimate truth is not complex. It is not hidden in ancient texts or encoded in esoteric symbols. It is not reserved for mystics or gurus or those who claim enlightenment as their birthright. It is available to you right now, in this breath, in this moment, in this body that has carried you through every storm. You are energy, not just in metaphor, not just in poetry, but in physics, in biology, in consciousness. Every cell in your body hums with electricity. Every thought you have ever had has left an imprint in the neural pathways of your mind. Every emotion you have ever felt has altered the chemistry of your being. You are not a static entity. You are a living current, flowing between dimensions of matter and meaning, between time and eternity. And the chakras, they are not 7 centers, they are one. One force, one pulse, one rhythm that moves through you, like a river carving its way through stone. They are not separate, they are expressions of a single intelligence that knows how to heal, how to awaken, how to become. This is the final realization. You are not broken. You were never broken. You were simply disconnected from yourself, from your source, from the flow that moves through all things. And when you lose touch with that flow, you begin to search outside yourself for what can only be found within. That is why you chased love in the wrong places. Why you sought validation in the eyes of strangers. Why you tried to fill emptiness with consumption. Why you numbed pain instead of listening to it. Because you forgot how to feel. You forgot how to trust. You forgot how to be. But now, you remember. You remember that the root chakra is not just about survival. It is about belonging. That the sacral chakra is not just about pleasure. It is about creation. That the solar plexus is not just about power. It is about will. That the heart chakra is not just about love. It is about unity. That the throat chakra is not just about expression. It is about truth. That the third eye is not just about intuition. It is about perception. And that the crown chakra is not just about spirituality. It is about connection to the whole. Each center is a doorway, and through each doorway lies a version of yourself waiting to be met. Not fixed, not improved, just seen, just known, just loved. And in that seeing, in that knowing, in that loving, you awaken, not to some grand cosmic revelation, not to some distant state of perfection, but to the simple, undeniable truth. You are already whole. You always have been, you always will be. It was never about becoming something more. It was about remembering who you already are, not the roles you play, not the trauma you carry, not the stories you repeat, but the raw, radiant energy that pulses beneath it all. And now, as the sands of illusion settle around you, as the weight of old patterns lifts, as the silence deepens into clarity, you realize there is no final step. There is no ultimate destination. Only this breath, this moment, this presence, this remembrance. And in that remembrance, you are free, not because you earned it, not because you deserved it, but because you never stopped being it. So go forward, not as someone searching, but as someone returning to yourself, to your power, to your truth, to your light, and let the world see you not as you were told to be, but as you always were, unbroken, unshaken, unafraid, alive.